Well, gentlemen, welcome to day 3 of the challenge, and I'm glad I've got you back. So how did you go? Did you do what we said? Did you manage to post on the group wall your whole foods dinner, your real foods dinner? And if not, why? Was it because you're unprepared? So there you go. There's a little insight into just knowing that potentially your preparation might be getting in the way of your weight and being able to transform your body. Second question I've got for you lads is, did you manage to get through to 12 o'clock fasting? So remember, you can have black coffee, green tea, you can have anything that doesn't contain calories, but in doing so, you'll be cutting down your window of which you can eat calories, thus you're much less likely to be overeating calories, going into a calorie surplus. This is going to have pretty significant impacts on allowing you to lose weight and really quite quickly. So we don't want to overdo it. This is not starvation. It's just cutting down the window in which we are eating. It becomes very difficult to still eat the same amount of calories in an 8-hour window versus a 13 or 14-hour window that you're currently eating your calories in. However, today we're going to duck into another one of our primary pillars, which is exercise or activity. And in this video, I'm really going to focus with you gentlemen on the importance of resistance training. So that is any type of weight-bearing activity, particularly in the gym. And I'm going to sell you on the reason why this is so important. So without any further ado, let's get into today's video, gentlemen. Okay guys, so as we promised, activity, and let's get stuck into it. So I want to remind you that activity or exercise fits side by side as a primary pillar item, along with nutrition and exercise and activity is the sort of thing that most people teach. Now, if we fit it into the fat loss 4, it becomes very, very important, but of course it does require an amount of time. However, one of the key distinctions between my recommendations and most people that you follow out there is that you don't need to be spending hours upon hours on cardio machines in busy gyms. In fact, I would argue that in between 2 and 3 hours a week, you can achieve the body that you want as long as you are consistent. Now, in my programs, this is certainly what I teach. I put together a resistance training program. You have the option of doing it as a beginner level or an experienced level, and training from anywhere between 2, 3, and 4 days. And I find that this is the best amount to fit in with your busy lifestyle and also to be able to get results without getting bored or overworked, if that makes sense. So let's tuck into today's session, guys, because it's a really interesting one. So if, like the majority of my people, you woke up this morning and just went, "What happened? I used to be fit. What changed?" Well, I want to give you the reason that that actually happened, because it's really that moment where you reach the fork in the road, right? You're either going to go down a life of eternal health or eternal fatness. And the problem is that the longer you go down that line of fatness, it just becomes very, very difficult to make changes later on down the track because your habits are so ingrained and your body's ability to change is reduced. You know, it's hard when you're in your 60s to actually start bringing about change then. Definitely not impossible, but more difficult because you probably got niggling injuries and you're just not as able as you were to do it right now. So what actually happened? Well, there's 2 facts that I want to present to you as to why you picked up that little belly, or maybe a big belly. 1, your engine is now smaller. Let me pose to you in the image here, the 2 cars. You got the big boy in the red and the little guy in the white. Which one chews more petrol? Of course, it's the big Mustang. And the reason why is because it had a bigger, or has a bigger engine. Now, you were exactly the same. Remember back in your teens and your early 20s when you had a bigger engine? Your metabolism was high and you could just eat whatever you wanted and you didn't put on any weight? And then one day you woke up and all that weight seemed to bite you in the ass? It's like you simply smell a piece of banana bread or a piece of cake and the fat goes to your gut these days? That's because your engine size has shrunk. In fact, it's going to continue to shrink unless you do something about it. And this is where resistance training comes in. You see, for every decade after the age of 30, you will lose somewhere between 3 and 10% of your muscle mass. Sure, that's a problem from maybe aesthetics and your tone, but most importantly, muscle is the type of tissue that chews through the most amount of calories. This is why it's so expensive to run a V8 car, is because it chews petrol at a much higher level than your little Toyota Yaris here. So what's happened is in your teenage years, in your early 20s, you had a bigger engine that chewed through the calories a lot more efficiently. But because you get into your 30s, 40s, and 50s, you start to lose muscle mass. Your ability to churn through those calories, even if you're eating the same amount or even less than before, is not what it used to be. Now, in addition to that, guess what? Your car is mostly parked. So not only have you downsized your engine, but you're not driving the car as much. So you put those two things together and it's a pretty simple equation. One, your slower metabolism, that is your decreased energy size. Two, you're burning less fuel because you're driving it more. And three, you're on that busy man's diet. Of course, we're making the changes now, guys, but that busy man's diet, those three things are going to lead to weight gain. You see, a lot of people are just sitting there wondering how this happened, but it's actually very simple. And when I put it to you in that manner, does that make sense now? Right? Does that make sense? You may not be eating horrendously bad, but you're putting on weight, and that is the reason. So really, there's only a couple of ways to combat that. It's like reverse aging. One is drive your car more often, and two, build a bigger engine. Lots of people say to me things like, surely just being active is important. 100%. In fact, that's the first step. But the next step is to get in a gym and start putting your body under weights. What this does is forces your muscles to respond. And when your muscles have to respond, they get bigger. What do we know about creating a bigger engine? It burns more calories. So even when you're sitting there on the lounge watching the footy, you're burning calories at a Mustang rate, not a Yaris rate. And you're burning more calories even at rest. This is why weightlifting is so important. Not only that, but it actually helps the fluidity and movement of your joints. There are so many benefits as to why we can start this now. Let's go through them. Look, I can sell you on all the pretty benefits, but let's get down to the facts of why actually lifting weights is really important. One, life's better when you're stronger. Don't you feel awesome when you can actually move stuff that other people can't, such as lifting a big box in the garage and being able to stick it on a shelf? That's important in life, right? It sucks to a man's confidence if you're unable to do these daily activities. Weightlifting is going to help that. Let me ask you a question. Do you want to be a withered sack of bones when you're old? Someone that's frail and tiny and not able to handle the rigors of picking up their grandson or their granddaughter? Lifting helps you to become stronger and more able to do these life things. Guess what else lifting does? It helps to offset your other vices. So I never tell my guys you can't drink, but what I do tell them is the more you lift, the more efficient you are at burning calories. Guess what? The more you're going to be able to offset calories that you're taking in through alcohol or eating with luxury. Okay, does that make sense? It fixes your tiredness and helps your mental health. I've got to tell you guys, I do use resistance training as a bit of a prop. Mentally, I'm just not there. I can't do videos like this and high-level coaching with my team unless I feel switched on. And really, resistance training helps me to get in that zone. you're less likely to die soon. And that's a hard fact. People that lift weights have greater capacity to live longer. They build better, more beautiful lives because they're able to cope with things like the rigors of normal life. They're not going to fall over, have a hip injury, and then basically go on the gradual decline towards death. And the last one, this is my favorite. You look awesome naked, right? Any man wants to stroll around his house and feel good. And I don't mean that in a sex way, I'm just meaning in a liberated fashion. It's not a good feeling to look down and see all these pudgy bits. In fact, remember I talked to you in the introduction video. There's nothing more liberating than going from being overweight to actually becoming of a good weight, so much so that you can go to a urinal and actually see your penis. Might sound funny, but how good would that actually feel? So the challenge that I find is that there's a lot of reasons or excuses or barriers when it comes to actually lifting weights, okay? And let's go through a few of them, and I just want to talk a little bit more about how we can get around them. So the first one is I really feel intimidated in a gym. And I think this is a real legitimate concern. You know, a lot of gyms are full of meatheads that are slinking around and grunting unnecessarily. So intimidation comes when you feel like you're being judged, right? So I want to give you 2 points. One, those guys don't care about you. They're on their own session. They care little about the newbie in the gym. But the second point is that you feel intimidated because you're outside of your comfort zone. So what if we were able to create a situation where you felt comfortable walking into a gym by equipping you with the base level skills to be able to know, well, what do I wear? How much should I be lifting? How much should I be resting? How many sets should I do? What exercise should I do? These are all things that I cover in my coaching program. I take guys who just feel so unconfident in a gym and be able to walk into a gym and just not be a pro, but just know the basics of what to do, when to do it, and how to do it with a level of confidence. Another one is I have zero time, and I often ask people, how often do you think I spend in the gym? And they say, 7 to 8 hours a week. Nothing could be further from the truth. It's less than half of that. I'd spend somewhere in between 3.5 to 4 hours total in the gym. All I'm wanting to do is just create a level of stimulus in my muscles so that they're forced to react, to respond, to grow bigger and grow better so that my engine increases. So what I'd ask you to do is think now. Are there 2 to 3 hours, not 10 hours, 2 to 3 hours in your entire week? And maybe it means getting up an hour earlier and training before work, which I feel is a really good strategy to help the compliance so that when you finish work for the day, you can actually just go home and rest. But can you find 2 to 3 hours to do it? Because if you can, that is all you need to get started in a gym. I have no idea what to do. Well, I've covered that. In fact, as part of my programming, what I actually do is give you access to a database, which is the most comprehensive database on the internet that shows you how to do every exercise that you would ever need to do. It's like me holding your hand and being there with you every day in the gym so you can actually know what to do and how to do it well with supporting videos and challenges. You get my drift. I've got to lose weight or fat first. That's a really common thing that I hear. So remember back to what I said at the start. Part of the reason that you put on fat was because your engine stopped burning as many calories. So as opposed to thinking I need to do cardio or eat well until I lose fat, it's quite the opposite. Getting into a gym, lifting weights, even if you are 150, 180, 200 kilos or whatever you are, it is going to help you increase your burn rate, right? Which means any calories that you do eat are going to be burned quicker, meaning you're going to start getting closer to your ideal weight. And I've seen guys who enter a gym struggling, but guess what? They get their doctor's clearance, they get into a gym and start training with light weights. Things happen very, very quickly. I don't need muscle, just weight loss. Look, I hear a lot of guys say this. All I can tell you is that if you don't do something to prevent you being a bag of bones when you're older, you're really always going to struggle. You're going to be one of these guys that has no muscle and a little pop gut because you don't have the ability to burn calories. Muscle helps you to burn calories. And I'm going to stay with, it's just too expensive. Well, look, this is a point that I can't necessarily comment on your personal circumstances, but I do have 2 points. One, there are some really, really cheap 24-hour gyms now where you can get memberships in the equivalent of, 10 to 15 USD a week, which is super, super cheap. And I want to balance that off against saying, think about the costs that you will incur in the future if you don't get your body right, boys. Does this make sense? So it's a small investment now for a potential windfall in the future. I really do think it's worth your time investment. But if you're at home sitting here watching this thinking, oh man, I just don't even know how to get started. Well, let me tell you simply, the way to get started is just one step at a time. One step at a time. It's about the formation of habits. It's not willpower. It's getting up in the morning and going for a small walk. That's all it is, a small walk. And then you've proven to yourself over a week that you can do a small walk. And guess what you can do next week? You can do double the time a walk, or you can do 2 walks a day. And then you'll be tracking your steps. Then before you know it, you'll be able to get into a gym, feel empowered, and you'll be knocking on my door asking for some coaching to help you along the way. So on the notion of tracking your steps, this is today's challenge. What I want you to do is go into your phone and find that app. I'm sure there's a similar one for Android, but for Apple users, it's called Health, simply. And what I want you to do is just have a look tomorrow or even today at how many steps you've done. I want you to post that on the group. Just screenshot it and post it on the group. What I'm trying to get you to do here, guys, is to become aware of how much you're currently moving in a day. Now, for me, a lot of my day is sitting at a desk, putting together content, putting together videos like this. So it's really important that I track this and make sure that I'm active outside of those work times. And starting at something like this is a couple of days for me quite recently, 4.8 kilometers and 3.1 kilometers. If you can just aim, if yours is 1 kilometer, just aim to do 1.5 kilometers tomorrow and change will start to happen. You see, each of these changes is just about doing one small thing, proving to yourself that you can do it. So get started, guys. If you would like to schedule a phone call with me to basically go through for free, I'll do it for free, the basics of your situation, your personal situation where you feel like you're stuck and you want to bring about change, that first call, what we do is we just get on the phone and we have 2 goals: to see whether we like each other and to see whether I can help you. If those 2 things happen, we can then proceed to a second call where we talk about prices of coaching and the like. But for that first discovery call, it's just a matter of hitting that button below and getting into the scheduler, and we can talk a little bit more about how we can customize a program for you and whether I can actually help you further. That's a wrap for today, guys. I hope you've enjoyed the video. We've got 2 days left of the challenge, so get to work. I'll speak to you soon.